Hi, is this Jason Curtis?
It is indeed.
Hi, it's Suzanne Vega calling.
How are you?
Oh, pretty good.
Not too bad. They make you do your own calls these days. It's not quite on.
Well, sometimes it's easier than, having them try to get through to me.
Yes, true,
So,
true.
it's not too bad.
Yeah, well, I actually spoke to you on the last album, and I think you were at home at the time.
Yes.
But as I say, good to have you back.
Thank you.
Not that you were away. As I say, unfortunately, in South Africa, you are far enough away to be back, if you know what I mean.
Right, exactly.
But as I say, let's kick off. I'm not absolutely sure how much time I have. You probably know more than I do.
I think we have 20 minutes.
Great, excellent. Well, let's cut straight into it if we can. Obviously, a new song and a best-of album. Whose idea was that?
It was both mine and the record company's. Actually, I had gone to the record company about 3 years ago and said, well, I've had 10 years in the business, and so I was thinking about having a retrospective. And then instead, I didn't do that, and instead I came out with the 9 Objects of Desire album.
Yes.
So they came to me now and said, would you like to put one out now? And I said, sure.
So it was because a lot of the time it can be a case of the record company wanting to do it, but I think it's perfect timing on your part because, as I say, it's as you say, it has been 5 albums down, and now time to reflect. Is that how you feel?
Yeah, I do. I mean, although I like retrospectives in general, so I probably would have. I mean, every time I do a show, it's a little bit of a retrospective for me because I have to look back over everything I've written and figure out what I want to sing that evening and pick out the best of for that evening. So I'm constantly looking back and figuring out what still holds up.
And the new track that you've got on there as well?
There's 2 new tracks, yeah.
2 new tracks, right? You want to tell us about those?
One's called... Sorry?
Sorry, no, yes, carry on.
One is called Book and a Cover, and the other one is called Rosemary. The one that's released as a single is called Book and a Cover right now.
And those songs written since 9 Objects of Desire?
Yes.
And any history with those songs, short of them being just new tracks for the compilation?
Yeah, Book and a Cover was originally written for a movie. And the movie was called The Truth About Cats and Dogs, and
yes.
they used the song Caramel, but
yes, that's right.
The actual idea of the song was meant for the main character,
right,
who is sort of judged by how she looks and how she presents herself.
Yes.
So it was an idea I had started fooling around with back then, and then I still liked it when it came time to figure out what I was going to do for the 2 new songs for this record.
Because I can remember at the time of 9 Objects, that was the same, well, pretty much close to the time that The Truth About Cats and Dogs came out. And I can remember you mentioning Book and a Cover then, but I don't think it had a working title at that point. But
oh, really?
Yes. But I know that you were not more excited, but you were as excited about that track, which is great that it's now now being released, which I think is fantastic. But
yeah. And also, Rosemary was actually a song that I had written and recorded the music for at the same time that I had done 9 Objects of Desire.
Okay.
I just had never finished the lyrics, so finally I did finish the lyrics and then released. That's what that is. That's sort of an extra one from 9 Objects.
Okay, and then did Mitchell produce on these 2 tracks as well?
Yes.
Right. And so say in actually putting all the tracks together for this, did you find that it was a difficult process, or sort of in including all the tracks that you wanted to, and perhaps putting in a few that weren't so obvious, obviously short of the singles?
It wasn't difficult. I mean, now I look back and I wonder maybe if I could have put in cracking or taken out a couple of things, but for the most part it was obvious. The list that the record company came up with was similar to the one that I'd come up with, except that I put in The Queen and the Soldier because I know that the audiences liked that one.
Right.
I think, and Caramel, I put that one in because I know that audiences liked that one too. So, it wasn't difficult, but it was interesting to listen to all the styles back to back.
Sure.
I mean, it was sort of a jolt, even for myself. I mean, I've written the songs, I know what they sound like, and to hear them all back to back and hear the different musical styles that I've been through over the years was a little jarring at first. To hear Blood Makes Noise right next to Small Blue Thing,
yeah.
I think it works for me, but on the other hand, it takes a minute to get used to it.
And I mean, I'm sure it shows you, obviously, what, you know, from whence you've come to where you are pretty much now. I mean, as you said, it must be quite enlightening as well, sort of seeing that progression in one foul swoop.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting. It's a bit like looking at pictures of yourself from high school. You know you're the same person within yourself, but the way you're dressed is a bit, you know, it can be a bit jarring here and there, just because maybe you're wearing something back then that you wouldn't wear now, that kind of thing. To me, the production of the music is more like the clothing, and the songs themselves stand alone as they always have. So some of the production on the early albums, I have to say, don't quite, you know, they rub me the wrong way. And I prefer the later ones. But there you go, and it's an interesting group of songs, I thought. I enjoyed listening to some of them more than I thought I would. And some I wanted to skip over, but
yeah. Sort of putting rest to demons, perhaps. You know, I mean, small little ones. Yeah. But now, I mean, you're in a precarious position now. I always sort of feel that with when a best of is put together, because everyone is sort of, you know, in a state of flux, waiting to see, you know, where you'll go to from here. You know, do you have sort of a basket of tracks that you know, have got ready in the sense that you know, of a direction of or where you're going to be taking things from here?
Not a clear one. I mean, I always start with the same game plan. Literally. I mean, for every record I have sat down and said to myself, well, I'm going to write 12 songs based on the acoustic guitar with melodies and choruses and, you know, relatively normal sounding songs. And then it always veers off into some other direction that I don't always feel I have control over. But I would like to get back to the acoustic guitar and back to songs that I can play myself without the production. And to spend a little more time on the lyrics and really just spend time with it so I can get it to be satisfying, because I have the uncomfortable feeling I've been cutting corners a little. Not that my audience complains, or not that the record company complains. No one's complaining at all, but I myself have the feeling that the songs are not, I'm not satisfied with them the way I'd like to be, the way and so that's my only direction that I can think of, to spend a little bit more time with the lyrics and have them be based on the acoustic guitar.
So it's actually, in a way, going full circle.
Yeah, it does feel a little bit like that. Yeah.
Because you are, to say that, correct me if I'm wrong, but you are currently part of the whole Lilith Fair tour as well, aren't you?
I did a couple of shows with them, yeah.
Right. And what was that like?
It was great. It was really great. I've enjoyed all 3 years of the shows that I've done with Sarah. The first year I performed with her, it wasn't being called Lilith Fair. It was just her on tour with a bunch of friends, you know, a bunch of women, and so we all performed. Then by the second year, it was called Lilith Fair, and it was making headlines and playing to 20,000 people. And this year it was the same thing. It's this very pleasant feeling of, because it's so successful, and everyone wishes it well, for the most part, except for, you know, there's always the sort of inevitable backlash. But this kind of, she's wanted to make a celebration of women in music, and I think that's what it's actually turned out to be.
Sure, you probably found that the backlash came from men.
Well, not so much as you'd think. I mean, there actually a lot of men come to the show and really love it. I mean, there's women in the audience and women on stage, and a lot of men like it. You know, they come to look at the women.
Yes.
Yeah, it was great, and that's fine too. But no, a lot of it, the backlash comes from women who feel they don't want to be categorized in that way, or you know, she's gotten criticism from various points.
It's odd, isn't it?
Tori Amos didn't want to join because she felt like she was too much of an individual to inflict her own thing on anyone else, and I guess Ani DeFranco didn't want to do it because of the corporate sponsorships and this and that. And
yeah, then Sheryl Crow also pulled out as well, which I think was for different reasons as well.
Yeah, I think it was for different reasons, more personal ones, more to do with her being on the road and that kind of thing. But I enjoyed it. I like being part of it, and I like it's different now than it was last year. I mean, now I think once they added the Indigo Girls, it really became much more of a tribal thing because they would bring people on stage, and I like their music. I'd never really heard them before.
But I mean, it must have been interesting also for fans of your music coming to see you, but then also their fans, possibly being exposed to your music, which wouldn't have otherwise happened.
Yeah, I found that it was an easy match. A lot of people seem to know my music already, and it was, even though they have a different sort of crowd, I think it was good matching. That's how I felt. I mean, I wish I could have played with a band, and I wish I could have played, but on the other hand, I was, happy to be part of the whole thing. It was a novel experience for me.
But as I say, I mean, moving back to the tour that you did with Nine Objects, obviously, like you were saying, the live experience was important to you in selecting the tracks that you did for the best of. As I said, that whole tour, what was that like? Was that a good tour for you?
The Nine Objects tour?
Yeah.
Yeah, most of it was good. I mean, it was a bit stressful because I had a full band with me, which I thought was a great band, and I really loved playing with the band. I love the music that we made. But I think the audience, especially depends on where you go in the world, but especially in England, where I spend a lot of time traveling there, a lot of people seem taken aback by the production, by the sounds on Blood Makes Noise, and by they liked it acoustic. They liked it the way they like what they like, which is the image of the girl with the guitar singing introspective songs, and something like Blood Makes Noise they're not crazy about. And so there's a bit of a thing about that. But I found in some of the countries where I hadn't been to so often that they loved the new songs. But it was a little bit of a strain because I had a full band and I had my daughter with me. And there's always the risk of people getting sick, which happens a lot when you're on tour.
Sure.
12 people on a bus.
Yeah, the more.
Be a bit wearing.
Sure. And I think it's interesting as well, through your career so far, is that each album that you bring out, I think certain parts of your fan base become, they have their favorite album, and then they will have their favorite moments. And the more albums that you create, the more albums you release, I think that it must become a little harder because you're trying to please. I mean, at this point, you're bouncing between 5 albums that have this tremendous growth. But
there's a lot of diversity to it.
Yes, and each fan out there who say went and bought the first album. The first album is their favorite, and then going along to Solitude Standing, and then having maybe a completely different audience or a new audience on top of that, embracing that. So as you go and as you develop, the audience grows, but then they tend to become a little more fickle.
Yes, and the other thing is that everyone, as you said, everyone has their favorite album, and then some people can't see it as a whole.
Exactly.
They can't see it as it's like the 5 blind men who are trying to feel the elephant and say what the elephant looks like. And one will say, well, it's round and fat, and the other one will say it's long and thin, depending on whether you've got a hold of the trunk or its leg. So it is a bit awkward for me. I've got a situation where you have young people who love Blood Makes Noise and they want to dance and come up to the stage, and then other people just want to sit down and they're much more sedate. They're sort of older and they want to hear the lyrics. And so I've got crowds of people. I mean, I've literally had it where one half of the audience is telling the other half to be quiet. Or the one half is telling the other half to sit down. Half the audience is running what we're like mad, and then the other half is trying to control the other half.
Yeah.
So from the stage, it's an interesting
Sure.
viewpoint to try and get everyone to just, calm down.
Yeah, because then people could always say yes, but by virtue of the fact that you have grown, you've confused your audience in the same breath, which is not the fact, because as I say, there's a progression there, which is great. But now, when you look at the album, the best of, as a snapshot, would you say it's a good reflection of things?
I do think it's a good reflection. I mean, I suppose if I didn't have to include some of the singles, it might leave more room for some of the other songs that I felt were more interesting artistically. A song like No Cheap Thrill or Book of Dreams, I wasn't sure about those. We did release them as singles, and so I felt we should include them. But to me, they weren't as spot on as a song like Cracking, which had meant a lot to me when I wrote it. But it's not one that a lot of people know. But overall, I'd say it's fair. I'd say it's a good snapshot. It's a good. It shows what I've been up to.
For fans of your music, and then obviously also for a new audience who is maybe just curious as to what you're about, but to this point maybe haven't bought an album.
Right, and that's kind of what I was thinking too. For me, if I'm curious about someone, but I don't want to invest on all 5 of their albums, I'll get the greatest hits because I figure there's got to be something good on it. I feel it's a safe bet, and so that's what I was doing too. Was kind of putting the songs I knew people knew from the radio. Most people have heard Tom Steiner at least, or Luca.
Yeah, sure.
And then put in the other songs that I felt that people would like. But again, it's kind of I guess I'm a rather eclectic person. I mean, because the people who love Blood Makes Noise maybe won't like Small Blue Thing, or the people who love Small Blue Thing won't like Blood Makes Noise.
But then in the same breath, they may, to this point, may not have heard either of those tracks, and as I say, it may cause them to go and revisit those albums, which is fantastic.
Yeah, that would be great.
Suzanne, could I ask you one last favour? I'm going to be putting this out on my radio show as I did with the last one. We didn't get an ID last time, I think because I wasn't bold enough. But if I could just ask you, perhaps the name of the show is very cliched. It's called The Cutting Edge, and if you could just play with that.
Sure. Hi there, this is Suzanne Vega, and I'm speaking to you from The Cutting Edge.
Excellent, thank you very much.
Okay.
Well, listen, thanks very, very much, and I know last time you did threaten that you would perhaps come down to our neck of the woods, and I'm still going to hold you to that.
Okay.
Because I still think it would be a treat of note, and as I say, there are certainly enough people here who are supporters of what you've done today. So perhaps it's one to pencil in for the new year.
Okay.
Lovely.
I'll definitely keep it in mind.
Great. Thanks again for your time.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye now.